You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and I am joined, long-awaited debut, my fellow Coaster101 team member, his first time on the podcast, Larry Treese. Larry, welcome to the Coaster101 podcast.
It's been many years. It's been, I was part of the very original podcast I think, what was that, 2006? Ugh.
Yeah, that predated me at Coaster101 by some time, and especially with this comeback that we've had of, post-pandemic where we got tired of breaking bread and we made a podcast just like everybody else on the internet. I want to go back and see if those old podcast episodes still exist on the internet somewhere. I wonder if John's got them buried.
I was going to say, one of both Johns either have them.
Oh man, this might have to be Patreon content for if we ever decide to go that route. It's just going to be the old early aughts of the internet, Coaster101 podcast. I love it. But in true Coaster podcast form right now, you're up in Michigan. I'm in North Carolina. None of our local parks are open. As far as news, there's not a lot of ongoing news. It looks like Penguin Trek at SeaWorld Orlando is almost complete track-wise, and Phoenix Rising, they've broken ground on that. I don't think they've got any supports in the ground yet, but again, not a lot of news right now, so I figured it would be a good time to just have one of these good old-fashioned podcast drafts. And on the subject of Penguin Trek and Phoenix Rising, we're going to take this podcast episode and we're going to do a nice little 12-round draft of the SeaWorld Parks coasters. So that's any SeaWorld park. So Orlando, Texas, San Diego, the new park in Abu Dhabi, Sesame Place up in Pennsylvania or out in California, and then any Busch Gardens park. So that is Tampa or Williamsburg, Virginia. The caveats here, we're going to do this in kind of a snake format. We're going to go 12 rounds. And the one caveat that I am instilling in this draft is that each of us must take one former Seas coaster. So that could be, again, any former coaster that formerly operated at Busch Gardens or SeaWorld. I know we've got an article on the website that parks that have never removed a roller coaster, and I was looking through, and both SeaWorld Over Texas and SeaWorld Orlando are on this list, so they have never removed a coaster, but Busch Gardens, Tampa, Williamsburg, and SeaWorld San Diego all have removed coasters in their day, so we'll be able to kind of pick from there. We will then put it out to the voting audience. We'll just kind of run through some stats here. But Larry, you ready to ready to get this draft going?
Got the list in front of me. So
okay, I'm gonna do the nice thing here. I'm gonna give you the first pick, which means I will have pick 2 and pick 3. So with your first pick in the SeaWorld Busch Garden Parks coaster draft, what are you taking off the board?
I'm going instantly for the classics, the funks, and I'm gonna pick Big Bad Wolf.
Ooh, that is a I think when I was kind of ideating this draft, I was convinced whoever took Big Bad Wolf was going to win this draft because it is such a nostalgic play. Did you ever get down to Williamsburg and ride it?
It was supposed to be a planned trip for 2016, 2017, and it just never happened. But it was sad to know that it was just one of the ones that never got the chance to. So.
Yeah. Fortunately for me, I did get to ride it, and I remember riding it in its last year, and in an old like YouTube channel that I had, I took out my point and shoot camera, which you're not supposed to do, and I not only did I film the ride, I filmed it in 2 separate locations. I did it in kind of that first area as you're kind of going through that old German village. And then I turned off the camera on the lift hill and then filmed the drop in the shakiest, awful, just not HD footage. I would post it somewhere, but it is just, it might be the worst coaster POV that has ever been shot, which coming from today's age, that's low
Yeah,
praise, I feel like.
yeah. There, I know. Alto Orion did a video not too long ago on it, and it's definitely kind of as Arrow was back in the 80s, most of the 70s and 80s. It was just fly by the seat of your pants and whatever works, and fix what doesn't.
Yeah, I know it. And you know what? I miss it. And everyone says that, whatever may or may not be coming could have some big bad wolf tie-in with the name. And I know Verbolten's got kind of the reuse the footers and all that. But, we'll see what happens. But hey, very solid pick for you. It was on my board. I was looking hard and long at it. And, I'm sad I didn't get to take it, but I'm glad you did. But it's gonna move me now to first or second pick of the first round and my first overall pick. I gotta go. You wanted to go with the classics. I gotta go with some new school off a classic, and I'm gonna go with Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. I got to ride this for the first time down at my bachelor party last fall, and I was on a train full of coaster enthusiasts and non-enthusiasts, and we all had a good time. And that just speaks to the quality of RMC's work. It's a ton of fun. And I had this for a long time love-hate relationship with RMC because I didn't fit in their ride vehicles. And so I lost a little bit of weight, and man, was I blown away.
Yeah.
So that's
even though it took, it took 2 full years to open after its original date, but it to me did, for the most part, did the original Gwazi very well for replacing for what it was. And I rode Gwazi back in the day on the Lion side with the original PTC trains, and that was an experience.
It's a rough one, that's for sure. All right, so we're going in the snake draft fashion here. I have the first pick of the second round, third overall pick, and I am looking at a list right now, and I'm going to keep it in the Busch Gardens family, but I am going to go up to Williamsburg, and I am also picking another coaster that opened post-COVID on maybe a little bit of a delayed opening, and that is Pantheon. The swing launch, that airtime hill, and you take in reverse before going up the spike, the overbank turn, all of these things, they are just amazing elements. And I really think that a lot of people sleep on Pantheon a little bit. They're like, yeah, whatever, it's good, but I feel like it just was it didn't have the benefit of opening when it was supposed to, and so people kind of forgot about it. But it is a solid ride, and definitely, I think, the best coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg now.
It's part of that new generation of Intamin coasters that have come over, and Intamin's kind of got back at it. They kind of fixed the issues that they had with most of the mid 2000s, that there was just so many great coasters, but just bad technology attached to them. So they just never got out. But between Pantheon and the aforementioned Velocicoaster,
yes,
they're
getting
themselves back in the U.S.
They are. All right, so we go back to you now. The fourth overall pick. You're picking the second round. What are you taking?
I am going to go with let's go the bigger brother dive coaster Griffon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg.
Good play. One of my favorites. For a while, Griffon, I think, was probably my second or third favorite roller coaster, just because of the proximity to me in North Carolina. We would go to Busch Gardens as a family, I feel like once a spring, and I remember Griffon opening and always riding it, and it was, for years, was definitely one of my top 5 coasters.
Yeah, it was definitely, you could tell that it was after Busch kind of learned from what they did with Shikara on how to take it up to the next level with Griffon, and it, even to this day, is still a very signature coaster at the park.
Yes, for sure. And you actually you have another pick here. So first pick of the third round.
This time, I'm going to go a little further back south to Busch Gardens, Tampa, to do Montu.
Good pick. On that bachelor party, I will be honest with you, Montu did a lot of my friends in, and I think we could just be getting old. You're a bunch of dudes in our 30s, and a friend of mine, he got off and basically all but passed out just from the forces of Montu. And again, he's not a big coaster guy, but if it's certainly a ride that I think a lot of enthusiasts love because it just whips you around and beats the hell out of you in a good way.
It's that mid 90s B&M style coaster that's what they were known for. It was that whole invert style between, Montu and Raptor. Montu kind of just took it to the next level with its below grade elements and very fast terrain. Sadly, no more alligators, but
that's okay. But yeah, I think the kind of I want to say what is it? They've got like the bat wing element that kind of goes under the ground, and it's intense. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it by any stretch, but I think I was on the Drunk Riders podcast, and somebody asked the question, "What's a roller coaster you'll never ride again, and you're perfectly okay with it?" And I think Montu for me, that was it. And I think I'm just getting old and boring, and really that's what it comes down to. Okay. All right. So my pick in the third round, pick 6 overall, joining Iron Gwazi and Pantheon. We're going to look through the list here, and we are going to go with, you know what? I'm going to go to SeaWorld Orlando, and I am going to take Mako.
Yes.
Another M coaster. But I think Mako is a pretty universally loved hyper coaster. I think it's one of those that a lot of people sometimes maybe forget about when you're thinking of, Apollo's Chariot and Nitro at Six Flags, Great Adventure, and Raging Bull and Diamondback and all of these other hyper coasters. But I think Mako is really, really good in its own right, and the airtime is fantastic. I'm shocked I was able to get it at the 6th overall pick, but it is it's there. It's now on my list, so I'm very, very happy that it did fall to me. Have you been down to SeaWorld Orlando and ridden Mako since it opened?
I have not. The SeaWorld Park, that whole kind of like hub there in Orlando has kind of been on my list. Parks to maybe next winter, we'll see. But it's, everything that SeaWorld Orlando has done down there over the last decade, they're stepping up their game. They're putting... if they can't beat Universal and Disney with their theming quality, then they can surely beat them with their coaster quality.
They are the coaster capital of Orlando for a reason, I think. And as they continue to just churn out coaster after coaster, I think 2024 will be their, I want to say, third coaster in 3 years with Icebreaker and Pipeline. Yeah. So, it's not every day that a big major park is putting this level of coaster capital in such quick succession. All right. So my pick in the 4th round here, so many good choices still on the board, which is great. I tell you what I'm going to do though. I'm going to go to a coaster that I've never ridden, just because I think we need a little bit of wooden coaster on this list. And I'm going to head down to Texas and pick Texas Stingray, the GCI wooden coaster that opened not too long ago. From all accounts, this thing is bananas. Looks amazing, and I really, really, really want to get down to San Antonio and ride this thing.
Yeah, the San Antonio parks between Six Flags Fiesta Texas and SeaWorld San Antonio, definitely bucket list parks of mine. It oddly was one of the coasters that opened up before the pandemic, so
Mm-hmm.
it had the luxury of being open for like a month and then not having anything done with it for a while. So, but it's definitely that newer generation of GCI coasters that you don't kind of see this like medium sized GCI coasters really much anymore.
Right. All right. So you've got your pick in the fourth round, pick 8 overall. Just to recap so far, first 7 picks, Larry took a surprising pick, a very solid pick, Big Bad Wolf, first overall. Followed that up with Griffin in the second round, Montu in the third round, and then I was able to get Iron Gwazi second overall, took Pantheon third, Mako in the third round at the 6th overall pick, and Texas Stingray at the 7th. And Larry, with the 8th overall pick, where are we headed?
I am going to go with a surprising little Woody, and it's going to be the Oscar's Wacky Taxi at the Sesame Place in Pennsylvania.
Really? That's a sneaky pick. Why'd you go Wacky Taxi over something like Invader?
You know, Invader, weirdly, I don't know. Invader is one of the GCI coasters that was kind of a weird, Busch kind of has some extra parts laying around, so they'll just make a coaster out of it.
It's true.
And Oscar's Wacky Taxi was kind of part of that resurgence of Gravity Group coming back with their strong family style kiddie coasters, kiddie wooden roller coasters.
I love it. That's I remember the IAPA. I was down there, had to been 2017, I guess, was when that train was unveiled. And I remember the level of detail on this, for basically a kiddie / family wooden coaster, and how realistic the Oscar the Grouch looked on the front of that train was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of the train right now, and the train just matches the Oscar's aesthetic just by looking dirty. That's something, as someone that has worked in the amusement industry, that's like the number one thing you want your coasters to do is to look clean. This is the opposite. It wants to just look dirty.
True. All right. And you've got a back-to-back pick here. First pick of the 5th round and 9th overall pick. Where you headed?
Let's see here. I am going to go with... let's see here. I think I'm going to go back to Busch Gardens, Tampa, and I'm going to do Kumba.
Classic pick. I think you're playing for the nostalgia vote here. I'm kind of seeing what you're putting down a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, it's the most photographed interlocking corkscrews in the history of roller coasters. But yeah, Kumba is a coaster. I feel like it doesn't necessarily show its age.
No.
It's got that roar, that classic B&M roar. It'll flip you upside down 6 or 7 times. I mean, it's everything you want in kind of that classic B&M sit down coaster.
Yeah, it's still hard to believe that this thing is 30 years old last year. That is absolutely insane. Just that I know there was some rumbling that Busch was going to take it out and stuff, but I'm glad that this one is just going to stay around and hopefully just keep running for decades more to come. So,
I mean, worst case scenario, we've seen the precedent with Incredible Hulk, and now we've seen it. What's that coaster at Alton Towers that they've just recently redone?
Nemesis.
Yeah. So it is possible to, redo a B&M from the ground up if Busch Gardens ever decides to go that route. But, Kumba's a classic. I think it is well deserved to be in the 5th round where we've got it. And the draft board here it's shaping up a little differently than I might have previously anticipated, but that's how these things go. You never really know what's in the other person's head.
Yeah, it's the Busch Parks have a lot of selections, so
they really do.
It's one of the companies that just has a wide variety from everything from great family coasters all the way up to the big monster coasters. So
Yes. And on the subject of both big monster coasters and classic B&Ms, with the 10th overall selection, my pick in the 5th round, I am going to the coaster that broke a face. And we're going to go with Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Oddly enough, I took the Coaster Insider Tour at Busch Gardens several years ago. That is the one thing they will not even entertain a question about, is what happened that day to Fabio on Apollo's Chariot with the geese. But when I told you earlier that Griffin was, one of my favorite coasters, for years, Apollo's Chariot was my number one all-time coaster. And this was up in, excuse me, this was up until about 2015 when Fury 325 opened.
Yep.
But for years, I always loved going to Busch Gardens on those spring trips. I would marathon Apollo's Chariot in the back row. It was there where I learned where you could keep your arms up, even though you're not technically supposed to for rider safety purposes,
Yep.
but you can keep your arms up on that little shed tunnel that you go through after, I believe, the second drop, and just kind of let the airtime take over. But yeah, Apollo's Chariot always has been one of my favorites. Really, really glad that I was able to pick it up here with the 10th pick. But okay, so now I've also got the 11th pick in the 6th round. We're almost at the halfway point here. Let's look. I'm giving a look and seeing some. There's still a lot of really good quality talent on the board here.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta go. I'm going to go back again. I'm going to ping pong between Busch Gardens and Busch Gardens. I'm going to go back down to Tampa, and Cheetah Hunt is coming off the board with the 11th overall pick. Another coaster on my bachelor party that was ridden by a lot of people, both enthusiasts and non-enthusiasts. Plays really well with its terrain, and especially kind of that backstretch where the S curves through the caves. And now that they've got the water feature going on back there again, I think Cheetah Hunt is that perfect. It's a family-friendly Intamin launch coaster with the multi-launches, and kind of you go up the Windcatcher Tower, which is a great view, and then you drop into the kind of the pit or the ravine or whatever we want to call that area. I think Cheetah Hunt it's another one of those coasters, especially in the greater SeaWorld Busch Gardens zeitgeist, that I feel like is slept on by a lot of enthusiasts, just because there are so many other really, really good options out there.
Yeah, it's definitely it's product of its age. It's from that early 2010s where Intamin was still kind of unsure about itself in the US, but this was definitely a big hit for the Busch Gardens Parks. Because if I remember correctly, this was just around the time, just before InBev was selling the parks,
right?
Or was it just after? The timing.
It's right around the same time.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, your pick in the 6th round with the 12th overall pick. What are you taking?
Let's see here. I think I'm going to go to San Antonio and pick the Great Steel Eel.
Good pick. One of those Morgan Hypers.
Yeah, the Morgan Hypers can be hit or miss, but I haven't personally been able to ride it, but I've heard Steel Eel is a very good coaster.
Yeah, I'm very much with you in that boat. I think was it 2020? Was that the year we planned the Coaster101 trip to San Antonio that got killed because of COVID?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. It was, but yeah, it's one of the unique Morgans that was built during Morgan's short time being around, and it's one of the features that you wouldn't expect at a SeaWorld park,
right?
But great views. The just kind of how it dives up and over the lake. It's definitely a very well done coaster
for sure. And I've ridden what is it, Steel Force at Dorney Park. I've ridden Mamba at Worlds of Fun. Those Morgan coasters, they're a ton of fun. And if you can get them in the right seat, and I realize that a caveat of a good roller coaster shouldn't have to be a specific row on a specific train, but
Yep.
if you can get the right row and you can get the airtime in the right spot where it's not too jarring and you're kind of floating a little bit over those hills, I mean, Steel Eel's it's a solid pick for sure. And you get another pick, 13 overall, first pick of the 7th round. Where are we headed here?
Let's see here. I think. Bouncing around the country here. I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go back to Williamsburg, and I'm gonna do Verbolten.
Good pick. That might have been my next pick. I think you might have sniped it from me.
Yeah, it's as well. Have Big Bad Wolf. Mine has a replacement.
It's exactly right. And this was a Verbolten was a coaster I actually got to attend the opening for. I won a contest or something on social media, so like predated my time with Coaster101, and they had like a VIP event that was like the night after the media day, and I was like 22 years old, and they were giving away free beer, and I was consuming a fair amount that night, and kind of getting into that indoor spaghetti bowl portion after several adult beverages. It was I learned very quickly that I don't necessarily get along with adult beverages and roller coasters at the same time. But Verbolten's a ton of fun, and again, it's no issue that it's like at Busch Gardens. It's a coaster that I think a lot of people forget about, because there is Apollo's Chariot, and there is Pantheon, and there's Alpengeist, and even, Loch Ness Monster with its loops. I feel like it's very easy to forget about Verbolten just because it did, like you said, replace Big Bad Wolf. People miss Big Bad Wolf, and this is it's viewed as a little bit more family friendly and family accessible, but it's super smooth. The element of surprise in the, what do you think, Larry? Are we are we past the statute of limitations so we can talk about I
was going to say, at this point, being over 12 years old, if you haven't seen a video of it or haven't ridden yourself at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say you can probably spoil
There's a drop
surprise.
track. It's great. And it was like, I remember riding that coaster, taking countless people on it, and never telling them there's a drop track, and just watching and listening and having them cuss at me as the track fell out from underneath them. It's a fun one. And I think just because of the quality of coasters at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, it doesn't pop up on, a lot of 1s and 2s for a lot of people. But, as soon as you get down to, the 3rd or 4th best coaster in the park, it's almost always there.
Yeah, and it's from a company that we do not see very much here often, being from
That's right.
Zero.
And I mean, typically Zero's a lot of family coasters. I know there's some Super Grover boxcar derby that were made by Zero that probably won't pop up on this list, to be honest. If you're waiting, I'm sorry. We've only got 12 rounds, so it looks like there's 11 more coasters and only 5 coasters themed to Grover for us to take. So. All right. Well, anyway, so I've got pick 14, my pick in the 7th round, and I'm surprised it's still on the board, so I'm going to take it. And that is Manta at SeaWorld Orlando, the flying coaster, the B&M Flyer.
Yes.
I think it is they've Six Flags it a little bit because there's 3 different Mantas, and all 3 of them are different. And the one at San Diego and the one in Abu Dhabi are a little bit more similar, but the Manta in Orlando with that pretzel loop and the kind of that low to the ground flying over the water where you can get right up to it and take pictures, I think is there's some seriously really, really good elements at Manta SeaWorld Orlando. And it's definitely, I mean, my sample size is pretty low at this point. It's either Manta or the Superman clones at Six Flags. But Manta is the best flying coaster I've ever been on, and that's one day I'll get out to the West Coast and ride Tatsu. But right now, Manta, far and away the best flying coaster I've ever been on.
Yeah, I mean, the model itself proved to be popular. The fact that they built the exact model over in Japan, so they certainly did something right with that design. And I have like a love and hate relationship with the flying coasters. So I will ride it if I ever go down to Orlando, but I'll either like it or it's gonna ruin my day.
You got to get the +1 regardless. So
yeah.
Okay. So we are into round 8. Both of us have 5 coasters left to pick. I still have to pick my my gone but not forgotten coaster at one of these parks. I'm going to save that for the end. Just to recap so far, through 7 rounds, I have got Iron Gwazi, Pantheon, Mako, Texas Stingray, Apollo's Chariot, Cheetah Hunt, and Manta at SeaWorld Orlando, while Larry has Big Bad Wolf, Griffin, Montu, Oscar's Wacky Taxi, Kumba, Steel Eel, and Verbolten. And so with the 15th overall pick, my pick in the 8th round, it's on the board. I got to take it. And it may not be necessarily my favorite coaster. So this is more of a defensive play. But Alpengeist is coming off the board. I think it is a really, really, really good invert. I mentioned earlier how Montu beat me up. Alpengeist, I think, does a little bit of the same for me and my old Equilibrium. So I love it, and it's another one of those coasters I grew up riding. But it is usually a one and done, or I can skip it and ride it next time I'm at Busch Gardens for me at this point. But that's no slouch. I think it's still, is it still the tallest B&M? Either that or Banshee, one of the two, right? Yeah.
Invert, yeah, I think, because it's one of the weirdest even ones that it's taller than its drop, 190 feet. And I have IMDb pulled up right now, and I can tell you shortly.
IMDb or RCDB? We're going to find out who produced this roller coaster on IMDb.
And Alpengeist is still the tallest because Banshee is only 167.
Believe it or not, can I go back to IMDb for a second and make a sidebar? There's an IMDb page for the Coaster101 podcast that I found recently, and it has like a list of episodes and all these things on it. And I was like, somebody's got a lot of time on their hands, or some AI has a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah, I would say that's interesting to think that we're on there, but
it is. We're on there with like literally every movie ever made. So 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's a lot easier than you think on the Coaster101 podcast. All right, Larry, round 8, pick 16 overall for you. Where are we headed?
I think, it's a lot. There's a few bigger ones on here still, but I think just for the fact that it's the first time we have seen this design in well over almost 2 decades, I'm going to pick Pipeline Surf Coaster at SeaWorld Orlando.
I'm really upset that when I was there earlier this year, I did not get to ride it. It was there. The track was complete, staring me in the face. They were still working on, the station and all these things. I don't even think there was a train on the track, but the track was complete. And from all reports, this thing seems like it's a great version of a B&M stand-up coaster.
Yeah, it wouldn't have known that it would take this long for them to fix the stand-up design after so many years, and several of the more popular ones being converted to sit down floorless. Um, but I think they've done a pretty good job on revitalizing it and kind of making it kind of giving that family friendly but still pretty intense
Yes,
kind of ride.
I'm hoping I can get down to Orlando later this year and finally get a ride on this thing, because everyone is telling me that's like, yeah, you can control your airtime, which you tell a roller coaster enthusiast you can control your own airtime. It's just like it's like Christmas. It's great. All right.
Yes.
And so you've got a back-to-back pick here with pick number 17 and your pick of the 9th round.
Let's see here. I think going down the list here, I think I'm gonna go back to the classics, and I'm gonna swipe Loch Ness Monster from Busch
Good pick,
Gardens,
especially in recent years. I mean, everything that Premier Rides is doing this off season to kind of restore the glory a little bit for Loch Ness Monster. I know they've redone some loops and portions of the track here, and for a coaster that I think is 45 years old ish almost at this point.
Yeah.
For a park to put this level of effort into one of its classic aero coasters and not just send it to the scrap heap definitely speaks to how special the Loch Ness Monster is to not only Busch Gardens, but to everyone, for generations of people who have ridden it.
Yeah, they bought brand new chassis from SNS, who still has all the catalog of the original era parts, so they were able to build brand new chassis. Premier retracking several chunks of it, which I believe the loops are part of that retracking. So it goes to show that this is probably one of the aero coasters that more than likely will survive longer than
it's outlived its parent company. That's for sure.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's say again, we've got two different draft boards here. We've got Larry playing the hits for nostalgia purposes. We've got me kind of taking some modern plays here. But let's see. All right. You know what? I'm gonna take my my twofer here, because I have pick 18 and pick 19. And I'm going to take one of your nostalgia picks finally. And I'm going to go with Scorpion at Busch Gardens Tampa. Busch Gardens Tampion. No, Scorpion, the classic Schwarzkopf. Yes, I love this coaster. I want to say it's either Scorpion or the former Aero Looper Python were kind of my first ever coaster ride that was like a non-Disney park. I don't remember which one I rode first because I was like 6, and I don't remember. But I was just tall enough to ride both of those about that age, and I think Scorpion, for again talking about a classic to be still kicking all these years later is it's pretty special. And I know they're working on that Legacy of Schwarzkopf documentary right now, which I think Scorpion should feature in pretty heavily. Very solid, very fun ride. I hate I didn't get to ride it because the weather got sour when we were there last time. But next time I get down to Busch Gardens Tampa, I'll make sure to definitely ride it. And then moving on to the 10th pick, 10th round, the 19th overall pick, I am going to go. You know what? Let's take a new coaster off the board. I'm going to take Penguin Trek because this thing looks exciting.
Yeah, it's part of that kind of, as I think we have an article up about right now, about the resurgence of the
that was a fun one to write. I'm not going to lie to you. just like looking at all of the new coasters that are opening in the US this year, and it's not just at the SeaWorld parks. Obviously, we've got Phoenix Rising at Busch Gardens, Tampa, but you've got coasters like Good Gravy and the Snoopy's really long name roller coaster that's the Boomerang at Kings Island. And
yeah. We got the one that's opening up in Knott's.
Yeah,
That's also
the Tender Pot
Camp
Twister.
Sushi
That
themed
one I do remember. But
Yeah.
there's so many really, really cool, exciting family coasters, and it's not just your everyday SBF Visa spinner or your Dragon Wagon. Manufacturers are finally bringing this kind of genre to the forefront, and it's a great gateway coaster between the younger coaster enthusiasts, kind of a stepping stone up to something a little bit more intense. So I'm excited. Penguin Trek, it looks really cool. I saw a picture just before we started recording. It looks like there's just a little bit of track left to go. So I'm hoping it can be open sooner rather than later, but I'm assuming some point April or May, if I had to guess, around that Memorial Day holiday.
Yeah, it's featuring pretty much almost a brand new design of B&M trains that we haven't really seen with the lap bar design that is over the head. So we shall see how that the comfort levels on those, because I know some of that style has been hit or miss. All right, over
Larry,
the years,
you've got picks 10 and 11 here. Your last set of back-to-back picks, and then I've got two more, and then you've got the final pick.
Oh boy. Let's see here. I think I'm probably going to go to one that I probably never will ever ride, and I'm going to pick the Manta at SeaWorld Abu Dhabi.
I was looking at this before we started recording, because I honestly, shame on me as a coaster enthusiast, I didn't know it really existed. I assumed it was just kind of a clone of the mock family coaster at SeaWorld San Diego, but it's pretty. It's kind of got like Madugani vibes with a couple more inversions, and it looks like a ton of fun.
Yeah, and it's weirdly enough, it is a Intamin design, even though it does look like it's a mock coaster. That's kind of the unique thing about it.
Go take a look, and Theme Park Insider has a pretty good POV on YouTube. But I think once the theming kind of fills in around this thing, it will be one of those coasters that enthusiasts are like, oh yeah, I really need to get out to Abu Dhabi and ride this.
Yeah, that's the Middle East is kind of shaping up to be the premium coaster capital of the world, pretty much at this point. Between the Six Flags park that's under construction, I mean, you got Ferrari World, you've got the SeaWorld there, and then you also got I'm drawing a blank on this one. But
it might be. It's one of those I can't. It's like they're building so many coasters over there, and all these the Western brands. It is really, really cool. Okay, and you've got you're picking the 11th round, which is the 21st overall pick here.
I think. Trying to also visualize some of these coasters in my head too. I think let's go, because we were talking about let's go with Phoenix Rising at Busch Gardens, Tampa.
It's gonna surprise people. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's a kiddie coaster. Oh, it's not as good of an invert as Montu," and it's like, exactly. It really doesn't.
It doesn't need to be.
I think, and look at what it's replacing here. It's replacing a wild mouse that was on its last legs when it got to the park, and
I wrote it back in, what was it, 20? I think it was in
Yeah.
2016. Whoa, that thing is
No, it's.
was not in
I
good
mean,
shape.
I
It
don't recall it
was.
being in good shape when it was at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, when it was Wild Mouse, spelled Maus. So yeah, Phoenix Rising
Yeah,
again. We have addition over subtraction here.
yeah, yep. Will kind of help fill in the gap that Busch Gardens Tampa is sort of missing, and it's kind of missing that like
Right.
middle low family thrill
Something
type
that's
that
not quite Super Grover's Boxcar Derby, but isn't quite um, Scorpion or Cheetah Hunt or even Cobra's Curse. I mean, so
yeah. Because it doesn't have invert, so that's kind of the big thing is that there's always the younger ones that are scared to go upside down. So
yes, okay,
it comes
all
close,
right. So
but
I've
not
got
quite.
my final two picks here, and and I have to take a former, no longer operating coaster. I'm going to save that for last. So this is a problem for me because I'm going to probably have to leave one of my favorite coasters on the board. But I with it sitting right there, it's staring me right in the face. And you know what? I got to trust the rest of my lineup here, and I might have to just leave it on the board. I'm going to go with Invader. I think Invader is a coaster that it's small in stature. It's good for families. But I think overall, it does what it needs to do so well. And that head chopper coming off the first drop and just kind of whipping around that back section of track with the curves and the bank curves and the curve drops and things like that. I think Invader does what it really needs to do. And that's just be a fun coaster for a lot of ages to enjoy. So I got to go with my gut here.
Yeah,
I left Sheikra on the board. I'm sorry. It's there. It was staring me in the face.
yeah.
But I gotta go with my heart on this one. And Invader was the pick. So I'm sorry. I don't want to tip Larry's final pick. He's already got Griffin. Does he need Sheikra? I don't know. But my final pick, so I've got to go with a coaster that no longer exists. And there are two here that I think you could stand reason to pick. And both of them, I think, were very rough in their day. But I want to go with the one that I didn't get to ride that has always fascinated me as a coaster enthusiast. So that is going to be Drachenfire at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. I think the B&M layout designed by Arrow is one of those that I again never got to ride because they took it out right before I was really, really into the enthusiast thing. And I never got up to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg to ride it. And I kick myself every time I take a ride around that train and we drive by the Festhaus Park area and it's just no longer there. But it's okay. So that is the that's what I have to pick. Again, I left Sheikra on the board. You've got Emperor still there. Cobra's Curse is great. Kraken is great. Wavebreaker is great in its own right. I mean, so you've got one more pick here, Larry. What are you going to take as your final pick?
Oh, yeah. This is a tough decision. There is a lot on here that it's you've got several good
So you're
ones.
taking Super Grover's Boxcar Derby at
here.
Sesame Place. Fair.
I already got Oscar's Wacky Tacky, so I think I'm just gonna leave that on there. I think I'm gonna go with some monster down in Orlando. I think I'm gonna. We gotta
So we got to specify here. This is Kraken with no VR on it, correct? Okay.
Correct. Yes. No. Thank goodness the VR era of roller coasters is officially done and over with. That is out of everything that has came out of 2020, okay. That was one of the best decisions.
So here we go. We've completed 12 rounds here, and I'm just gonna recap both sets here. I'm not gonna go in order of. I'm gonna just read the draft as it was, and I'm gonna go with. So just to recap, Larry's coaster roster here with his 12 coasters. He's got Big Bad Wolf. He's got Griffin at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Montu at Busch Gardens, Tampa, Oscar's Wacky Taxi, a steal of the draft in the 8th overall selection. He's got Kumba. He's got Steel Eel for Bolton, Pipeline the Surf Coaster, Loch Ness Monster, the SeaWorld Abu Dhabi version of Manta, Phoenix Rising, and Kraken. Meanwhile, I have got Iron Gwazi, Pantheon, Mako, Texas Stingray, Apollo's Chariot, Cheetah Hunt, SeaWorld Orlando's Manta, Alpengeist, Scorpion, Penguin Trek, Invader, and Drachenfire. So we're going to put this out on social media. We're going to have the audience vote, and we're going to see, we'll give it a week or so, put it out there, see how how the audience fares. And we're going to put this out on Twitter is where you're going to be to vote. And because I refuse to call it X. So it will be on our Twitter page. It'll be pinned at the top of our profile. But Larry, do you want to try to convince the audience one final time as to why they should vote for you? And even if it's like, we had to listen to Andrew's raspy voice for almost an hour. So pick me. I mean, what's your selling point for your lineup here?
I've got not only the nostalgia factor with Big Bad Wolf, Loch Ness Monster, Kraken, Kumba, but also, I've got the big hitters like Griffin, Montu, Verbolten, Pipeline Surf Coaster, and the Manta at SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, and also can't forget out Phoenix Rising just because it's the B&M invert family coaster that it's a brand new to the US, so can't let I know the Big Bad Wolf is gonna hit a lot of the nostalgia factors for a lot of you. So
I hear you. Well,
there's a reason why
I'm gonna give my final plea to the listening audience, then we'll wrap this show up. If you like wooden coasters, vote for me. If you like RMC, vote for me. If you like B&M hyper coasters, vote for me. If you like Intamin launch coasters, vote for me. If you like B&M family coasters, I'm really surprised because that means you're pretty well traveled as an enthusiast because not a lot of those exist. But also, vote for me. If you're like me and feel the mystique of Drachenfire, also vote for me. Or you can vote for Larry, whatever. If you don't like the sound of my voice and you feel that I've given you a raspy, almost hour of recording, I'm sorry that I'm still not quite over the flu, but the show must go on. So, in a sympathy vote, vote for me. Thank you. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster101 podcast. Make sure you head over to our Twitter account at Coaster101 to vote for me or Larry, who had the best SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, Sesame Place coaster draft. We're also on every other form of social media at Coaster101, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. This podcast is on YouTube now, so there's nice audio captions. Good luck, AI, transcribing my raspy voice this week. We've got a website as well, coaster101.com, for the latest and greatest in written word of coaster news and reviews. Like Larry mentioned, we've got an article up pretty recently about the renaissance of the family coaster. That was a fun one to write, so go check that one out. If you're looking for the latest and greatest in Coaster 101 merch, including some podcast-specific designs, go to c101.co/tpublic. Check out our TeePublic shop. If you're listening, make sure you're liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, listening wherever you can get this podcast. And again, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher. I'm sure there's some other places I'm forgetting. Maybe if we really get lucky, Nick will put this on Facebook too. So anywhere you can find podcasts and you can review podcasts or tell people where to listen to podcasts, give us a shout, because we love growing our listening audience, and we're excited to continue to grow this show into 2024 and beyond. And finally, thanks as always to Justin Mabry and JMD Entertainment for our theme music. Larry, this was fun. We'll have you back on the podcast here. It's going to take more. It'll take less than 138 episodes to get you on next time.
Yes, there are things planned for 2024, especially a big thing in Ohio.
Yeah,
that will be
it'll be thrilling too. It'll be the top thrilling too. Yes. Anyway, we will talk to y'all again soon. See ya.